Hey there, I wanted to do this quick intro for this video. This week has been neat. I got to do the Women's Wealth Seminar, which obviously ended up being an online seminar, and some really great speakers. I just wrapped up the Black Financial Channel interview, which, I wanted to share with you guys. And, one of the reasons that these are so important to me is that when it comes to a lot of stuff that we do, the numbers are really overwhelming. And Sarah and I were talking about this. It's like, for my channel, especially female to male, it's 93%. When I look at my demographics for the people that are coming in, and this is just based on people that are thinking about private equity, getting into micro private equity, that's the traffic, and it's just so overwhelmingly male that it's really outrageous. And I think some of it's just the awareness. Same thing with minorities. It's just like most people are not thinking about this space, and so it ends up being overwhelmingly white male just because those are the folks that are searching and getting access to the information. So I love when I can share this with those other demographics, because even when I look at my clients, it's been the same way, obviously, because those are the leads that are coming in, and those are going to be the clients that end up kind of breaking through the noise. So when I'm looking at 94% of the fact that 94% of my clients over these 20 years have also been male, and probably about 85% white male. But then I look at the fact that three of my very best deal makers that have gone through this process have been female. So it's like once they're exposed, it's like they're totally capable of doing it. It's just the lack of exposure. So wanted to share this video. This is, I can't share the seminar that's behind the wall, obviously, but I wanted to share with you guys this the Black Financial Channel interview. Check it out. Great information, obviously, for everybody. We get into the 5 best opportunities that I'm seeing in the market because of COVID, because of Corona, because of what's going on, and some of the things that we're doing to take advantage of those opportunities. So hope you enjoyed the interview, and thanks so much for checking it out. At the end, of course, of course, subscribe, of course, comment with your thoughts, your questions. Maybe you have some ideas on how to get more exposure into these less represented markets in private. I mean, it's not just me. It's like when you look at private equity fund managers, and you've got a picture of them, there's going to be a very consistent basis as you get into the Robert Johnsons, and especially when it comes to billion-dollar funds. It's just they're just very few. Women private equity fund managers, there are very few. Black or minority, people of color, a little bit more on Indian, Asian, and that kind of thing. So hopefully we'll spread the word and be able to create a bit more diversity. Thanks so much for checking out the video.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Great Black Speakers Podcast, where we connect through conversation. I am your host, Lawrence Watkins. I am the founder and CEO of Great Black Speakers Bureau. I'm also the president and chief operating officer of the Black Business School. So today we have a very special guest, a longtime friend of the Black Financial Channel. We're here with Mr. Ace Chapman. Ace is the manager of the Sleeping Beauty Fund, which is a $20 million family of funds focused on micro private equity, buying businesses that generally range under $5 million. He's also the CEO of Fiji, which is a publicly traded royalty company focused on internet-based businesses. And today we're talking about the 5 biggest opportunities for small business acquisitions during the coronavirus. So Ace, man, how are you doing today?
I am good. When we start talking about coming back on and chatting, I mentioned it's like, man, there's a flood of opportunities. Now is the time to talk about them because we're just coming to the end of some of the Corona-related issues.
Yeah, man. Well, let's just hop right into it. So, of course, you've taught a master lecture within the Black Business School, and we'll link
Yeah.
to that beneath this interview. But you are the master when it comes to small business acquisitions, and I know most of your acquisitions, that you target are under $5 million, or $2 or $3 million, that type of range as well. and you've done a couple of interviews in the past, but today I wanted to focus on new opportunities. So what are these new opportunities, and how is I guess the coronavirus and then just what's going on with the nation in general, affecting small business acquisitions in general?
Yeah. So, one of the things, and I appreciate being called a master, but it makes me sound a lot smarter than I am. It's the fact that I've been doing this for 20 years. And that's one of the things that's unique about right now is that, I did my first deal at 19 and, been through two recessions and just have seen a lot of things. And this is the first time that I'm seeing some of the opportunities that exist in the market to not just even not necessarily have to buy a business. It could be getting involved with the deal. But let's start with what some of my clients are doing and some of the deals that they're working on that are really incredible. Now, this is over the course of the last 6 months, it's interesting. I was had a comment under a video on YouTube that I had done in November, and I was basically saying, "Hey, stay out of the market. Now isn't the time to buy a business. Multiples are really high. I'm not liking the opportunities and the selection," and so a lot of people were, just kind of surprised to hear me say that, but fast forward to now, and it is literally the opposite. It's the best that I've ever seen for business buyers in the last 6 years. So one of the things that we're seeing in the market right now is for those folks that are interested in offline businesses, buying businesses that were affected by the virus, but only buying them because there is a big opportunity that exists beyond just, okay, the business is going to start back. Because if you can buy a business that's actually going to come out bigger on the back end, then that creates a unique opportunity for you. And so I have one client that's working on a flower business. It's a business that's been around for 30 years. The owners are just kind of tired of it. And this is a place that hasn't taken advantage of delivery. And the other reason, one of the things that we've done is take a look at what are the industries that are on the biggest uptrend. And there are a lot of these lists out there where people have surveyed and looked at demand and basically said, okay, here are the top 10, top 20, even top 100 businesses that are benefiting from the trends that are basically happening because of COVID. And one of those businesses that's benefited greatly is the flower business. Since people aren't able to travel when there's something big, there's a wedding or there's, some big event, they're not able to see friends even for birthdays and things that they would do. Guess what? They're sending a lot more flowers. And this business is getting a lot of those orders despite having a horrific website. So not only is this business still doing well, they want out, there are no buyers in the market, but in addition to all of that, they aren't taking advantage of everything that's happening right now. So those are the kind of opportunities that we're seeing. The other beautiful thing about that is we structured that deal, and actually my number two big trend is SBA. So we'll talk specifically about what's going on there. But we basically worked this deal where the client, my client who's buying the business is essentially buying the business with the cash in the entity and the inventory, and essentially will have a zero down payment in a business that generates 6 figures a year. Low 6 figures, but still generates 6 figures a year profit. Now we go to another deal, which one of the things that I love about helping clients buy businesses is that I get exposed to a lot of different types of deals, maybe deals that I personally wouldn't buy. And the main reason I do it is that I get to invest in those businesses, but sometimes just going through the process of looking at these different businesses, that is really interesting. And so one of the deals that I have a client who's actually, I won't give away the locations just because the business, but he's an African-American client and is buying a gun range. So we're looking at this gun range deal. It's an amazing deal. Comes with the assets in this business. We're basically buying the business with, again, a six-figure cash flow. And we're getting that business for less than the real estate and the assets are actually worth. So the real estate and assets come with the business, but we're getting the business for less than everything. And in addition, and this is one of the reasons that it's just, for the last 20 years been very surprising to me that people get so excited and obsessed with real estate, which is an amazing investment. But what if you can buy real estate and have a business that's on that real estate that's generating you the money, and the real estate just comes for free? So if you can get free real estate, so we do a lot of deals like that. Every time we do it, it's so funny to me that people go through all this trouble, obsessed, excited about buying real estate, and it's like we're just getting free real estate plus this amazing income. So that's number one. Anything that you want to chat about there, or you want me to move on to number two, Lawrence?
Yeah, no, let's just talk about that, right? So you mentioned the flower business. You also mentioned a gun range, and those flowers and guns. Those seem
Flowers.
those seem like things that are on the opposite ends of the spectrum. And I just
Yeah.
wanted to see or just think through what are, I guess, the macro types of things that are making these entities good buys, right? So like, what's going on in the world? With their business model, are there similarities in their business model structures, that type of thing, that are making these, I guess, good buys for right now?
Yeah, it's a couple things. We've known for years now that the baby boomers, they own, there are 20 million of these businesses that are just small little businesses. And these baby boomers own a lot of them. And at some point, they have to sell. Now, a lot of them are holding on for a really long time and not haven't been interested in selling. But now it's getting to the point where, with everything that's going on in the world, a lot of them are now motivated to put their business on the market and sell. Unfortunately, and this is the way everything works. It's going back to 2009 with real estate. Everybody's motivated to get rid of their real estate when it's the worst time to get rid of your real estate. So literally, it's that combination that, number one, is creating this unique opportunity, is that you have all of these business owners, some with really great businesses, some with businesses that are really kind of zombie businesses. They're still there, they're still somewhat active, but it's the walking dead. They're going to go out of business. And so we want to select those businesses that are still making money. Nothing's really changed in a major way, but there's some opportunity for growth on one end, and there's a motivated seller on the other end. So talking about that opportunity for growth, the cool thing there is when you look at what's going on in the in those two markets in particular, and that's where we're focused. So we're trying to find those deals where we look at everything that's kind of, we have people that reach out to us, and we look at all these deals, and we basically say, all right, where are the deals that are going to benefit from the changes that are happening? So I talked a little bit about the motivation and the increase. It's been a massive increase in the flower business. And at the same time, there's a whole nother set of circumstances that is really motivating people to buy guns. There are more African Americans that are getting gun licenses than ever before. And, on the other end, there are a lot of white people that are now getting guns and everything. So on both of those ends, there's an increase in demand. And so it's getting in front of that, and it's one of the reasons that I have after buying a business and then trying to start a business from scratch years later, I realized, wow, the opportunity for me to buy something that's already there, that's already set up and ready to take advantage of trends. That's how you get in front of trends. If you see a trend and you say, okay, there's going to be a trend in guns and shooting ranges and selling bullets, all the ammo, all this stuff. Then, and you think, okay, well, I'm going to get in front of that trend. So now I'm going to go try to find the right location. I'm going to try to get all the licenses, just the regulation. That's been something that, has been new. First time helping somebody on a deal like this, going through that whole process. Then I finally get the lease, I get the license, I do the build out on my building, and then I get all the inventory and build those relationships with the manufacturers and hope that I as a new business, that I can get the right terms and just all of these things that you got to do. And so a year later, you're trying to get in front of a trend. It's like, no, find the person that's already ready for that trend and then negotiate an amazing deal. And that's what we're doing in both of those cases is, here's a trend. Here's somebody that has everything is already put together, the right relationship. You think about that even with flowers, just what we've learned in like sourcing the flowers, having good terms with the vendors on the flowers, having a database of customers, just all of those things are major deals when it comes to being able to get in front of a trend and take advantage of it.
Yeah, well, let's go a little bit deeper to that in like the flower perspective, and then we'll get to the number two thing, because I think this is a very important learning point for everyone who is watching as well. What I want to speak on is, so you have this flower company that you purchased, whatever, and the demand was already building even before you were purchasing like this particular company, but for just certain reasons they couldn't really take advantage of that demand because of whether it be technology or distribution or something like that, right? So from an even more fundamental perspective, how are you adding value to remove that bottleneck to start taking advantage of that demand, let's say in the flower business, for example? So is it like just the creation of a new website? Like, what does that look like for you?
Yeah. And this gets to the crux. I think it's one, and that's such a great question, because this is at the foundation of what we do as business acquisitions specialists as opposed to entrepreneurs. It's a very different thing, because I think that most entrepreneurs think, why would any business owner that has this kind of potential not take advantage of it? And I just have an endless number of stories, but one of my favorites is when I, as an African American man, bought my first tanning salon. And it ended up buying 5 because I realized, like, hey, I can kill it in this business because of some things that were happening at that point. But in the first one, I'm talking to the lady. I walk into a tanning salon, first time I've ever been one in my life. And last thing I'm thinking is, I'm really going to buy it. It's like, okay, let me just see what's going on. Talking to her, and we kind of get a wrapping up, and she's like, I'm asking her about our customer database. Do you have a database of customers? She says, yes. I'm like, okay, great. How many people? Let me look. I don't really look at it that often. We pull up the computer. She pulls it up. 14,000 people. Emails, phone numbers, mailing addresses. I ask her, like, okay, great. How often are you messaging these people? And she's like, I don't do that. And I'm like, well, not just text messaging. I'm saying like any form, like calling, sending a mailer, like how often do you do anything to contact? And she's like, nah, I don't do any of that. It's like, I don't want to bother my customers. I'm like, so you've never contacted any of the people that are in this database? And she's like, no, never. And so I literally moved her out of the way of that computer, wrote up a contract right there,
Yeah.
and printed it out, and we signed it. So the first time I ever walked into a tennis salon, I bought it. And it's because of that. And so ever since then, I've just seen, like, it's not a matter of, oh, what's keeping them from taking advantage of these easy. Like, that's literally upload the emails, type something out, and press send. There's not a impediment. Sometimes it's just their way of doing business. And it's great because they've got some other skill sets that they've used to get the business to a profitable standpoint. The other point that's important is that we buy the business based on today's income. So we like to buy businesses at it's interesting. We like to buy businesses, and this has been over the last probably 8 years. We like to buy businesses at a 3 multiple. What that means is that if the business is making 100,000, we want to buy it for no more than 300,000
in profit.
In profit, cash flow profit. And what we want to do then is get a loan and get some owner financing for that 300,000, so that our 100,000 is, maybe 30,000 is going to the service of debt, 70,000 is for us. We don't have any cash. It's an infinite return. So we're buying the business based on that. Everything that we're doing to grow the business or get in front of the trend is just a bonus on top of that. So we want to have those opportunities there to be able to test things and grow things, but we're not buying the business based on the fact that it's going to get that. Now, here's what's cool about today is that right now, the multiples, when I'm talking about the deals, I've got one client that just bought a deal at a 1.2 multiple. That's a third of what we would have bought that business for 6 months ago, like a third. I have another buyer that's buying a business in a different industry where the multiples are typically 5, and he's getting it at a 2.5. So it's 50% of what the real value is. And that's the starting in the 2.5. That's the starting. So we may get that to 2 or below. So we're talking about doing deals that are a combination of things. We're buying it. All we care about is the income that's coming in right now. That's great. We're going to get an amazing return. We're getting it cheaper than what we would otherwise. Then we're using leverage to get it with a low down payment. In the case of the gun range, literally getting more assets than what we're buying it at that multiple for. And with a combination of all of those things, then we say, okay, well, let's also make sure that it's in an industry that's going to grow. Now, in both those cases, there are some things that can be done, but I wanted to set the stage before just saying the reason that. So it's great that you have that, because none of this stuff existed 6 months ago, but it's now we're at the frosting level. This is the frosting on the cake, is that now we can look back, look at all the hundreds of deals that are being sent to us and say, Flowers, there's some potential there. It's on the top list of growing businesses because of COVID. Oh, okay, guns, it's growing because of all the unrest, the civil unrest that's going on. So we can then cherry pick and say, we're going to be able to buy this business because the whole, a rising sea raises all ships, I think they say.
Gotcha. Well, let's continue to talk about that in a second. So you mentioned the flowers and the guns. We're going to get to their next point in here in one moment. But before I do, just want to remind everyone I'm here with Ace Chapman. Ace is the manager of the Sleeping Beauty Fund, which is a $20 million family of funds focused on micro private equity, buying businesses usually under $5 million. He's also the CEO of Fiji, which is a publicly traded royalty company focused on internet-based businesses. And today we're talking about the 5 biggest opportunities for small business acquisitions during the coronavirus. So if you guys like what we're talking about today, like the information that Ace is delivering to you guys, please make sure you press the thumbs up button. We really appreciate you for doing that. Please share this video with friends and family, as well as subscribe to the Black Financial channel if you would like to receive more interviews and content like what we're producing today here with Ace Chapman. And you can find out more about Ace at acechapman.com. That is acechapman.com. And a link after this interview will be in the description bar of YouTube as well. So Ace, let's talk about the next thing. So you mentioned guns, you mentioned flowers. Like, what's next?
And I will second that on the like button. Be sure to hit the like button, because this is something that I don't hear a lot of people talking about. Just being real, like we're out there doing it, and I just don't hear a lot of people talking about these opportunities that are unique. And it's an opportunity for us to start buying up our communities like right now. People are more motivated than they've been. So the second big opportunity is SBA. So I mentioned that on one of the deals that we're closing right now. And it's just, I have never been a big fan of SBA over the years, because there's just the downside of all of the headache that you have to go through to get approved. Then they charge you, in the past, they've charged a really high interest rate. They've required outrageous liens against all your assets. So it's just been this big headache, and it takes too long. And so when you're trying to close a deal, well, all of that is out the window. They are trying to get money to work. So if you are someone that has a good credit, the easiest SBA loans to get are on deals that are already in business. This is another one of those things where we think, oh, it's tough to raise capital. And it's because we're going into a bank saying, hey, I want to get access to $100,000 because I'm going to start a business. And no smart person wants to make that investment. We know that as somebody, you take something like the Shark Tank. We know that any one of those sharks, if they just attach their name to that business, it's gonna make some amount of money. You know what I mean? Like, regardless of how good the business is, how crazy it is, it can be the dumbest idea ever, it's gonna make some money. But they understand that, man, even with my name, starting something from scratch is immensely risky. And the odds are that, again, even with my name, it's going to fail in the long run. So that's all the bank is saying. And so when you say, hey, I know that majority of businesses fail, but I've got one that has made it for 20 years in the case of the flower business, made it for 28 years in the case of the gun business. It's been around. It's gonna continue to make money. It's got customers. All that stuff is there. It made it through what I call the entrepreneurial gauntlet. And the entrepreneurial gauntlet is what most businesses have to go through, and most of them don't make it through. So when you bring a deal like that to the bank, they want to make the SBA loans because they make money and it's insured by the government, essentially. So they want to do those loans, but they don't want to do them and lose money. They want to do them and make money. And so what you can do as somebody who's bringing in a deal to them is say, hey, I got what you're looking for. Like, I got the goal that you're looking for. And it's a business, been in business for 20 years. Here are my plans to grow beyond even what it's doing right now. And that's where some of these other things, I'm talking about the trends and bringing technology into the business and promoting it online and all that stuff, that gets a bank excited. It's like, okay, you've got this foundation, and then you're going to build this stuff on top, and it's been making, $200,000 a year for the last 10 years. Like, this is an easy loan for us to agree on. And so when you add that last kicker to boot, and it's that, oh, and by the way, this gun range comes with $1.5 million property that I'm getting for free, essentially. You don't have to do a lot of work to get access to the money. So getting these deals and going to SBA is the big opportunity right now.
Now, does PPP or EIDL, do those fit into this in any type of way, it's coronavirus specifically, or is that just like a flash in the pan type of thing?
No, there are some opportunities for the folks that are already in business, and I'll actually talk about that a little bit in number 4.
Okay, cool. Let's get to the next one.
Cool. So number 3 are internet businesses. When it comes to internet businesses, that was what I was focused on back in November when I was saying, hey, there aren't many opportunities. I'd be very careful. There's a lot of crap coming onto the market. There's a whole bunch of demand, a whole bunch of money, and very little really good deals. Well, that's changed. And when I'm talking about the multiples of those two deals that I mentioned, what we're seeing right now is an influx of people reaching out to us to buy their business, whereas, that just wasn't happening 6 months ago. So we're doing a lot more deals, and we're getting those deals at a lower multiple. And one of the big opportunities there, I'm sure everybody heard, and I know you heard about Joe Rogan's deal and him getting $100 million to license his podcast. Well, one of the things that excites me about that is that when we do these deals, there are all these other assets that come along with it. We bought a business a few months ago that has a few hundred thousand followers on Instagram, has about 500,000 in a group on Facebook. And so these are separate assets that most of the time when we're buying the business, that business owner is really just focused on monetizing it to grow their business. Well, what we're starting to do is make these are capable of being their own businesses. So almost like you would do in a breakup when you're doing M&A deals or larger private equity deals, it's splitting these assets up so that they become their own things that are their own business. So yeah, they'll promote for the parent company, but why not go out and promote for other businesses? Why not even partner with smaller businesses and take equity in those businesses in exchange for partnering and starting to promote them on a consistent basis? So it's not just a flash in the pan kind of thing. When it comes to the Facebook group, same thing, building it like it's been interesting. One of the things that we've done is we've pulled up the people that were the most active in those groups, and we've made them the managers, and we've actually empowered them to say, hey, we want a certain amount of promotion that's going to come from the parent company, but guess what? You're going to get 50% of whatever you bring in, because that generates a whole new business. Now we have a separate asset that we can go to the market and sell. And within that asset, we can actually have a contract still with the parent company that says, hey, when you take over this business, we already have this long-standing contract that, every other day there's going to be a post that says these specific things about the products from this company. It's a really powerful strategy. And it just goes on to all of these different medias, the podcast and all that. And it's really interesting to me that a lot of people spend a lot of their life energy and their time and their focus, again, trying to build all of this stuff from scratch. Not only they're now, because of media, which is this huge opportunity, but not only do they have to build their business from scratch, they have to basically build a media company from scratch as well at the same time. And it's difficult, no matter how easy people try to make it look on Instagram. The great majority of people are failing miserably at that process.
How difficult is it to spin off a piece of a technology business that has been a part of another business before?
It depends if you want to sell it. So for us right now, actually, we just did a deal between two businesses that are within kind of my ecosystem. So I have a business that was bought by a client, and I helped him buy that business. And then, and actually, man, so I'm glad you asked that question. Like, there's so many examples, but we had a guy who bought a business, and included in that business was a random TikTok, which I've never even used. But there was a random TikTok that the guy who started the business had built up and wasn't doing anything with. He included it in this business, and it was we basically did a deal where the person that could benefit from it bought it from him. Now, another better scenario, which is why I kind of quickly went through that one, came to mind. So we're doing a deal right now where somebody who again, as a client, they did a deal, bought a business. And this business is basically it's in the business of taking quotes from very popular people on social media. And there's a software that takes those quotes and puts it automatically on t-shirts and everything from Teespring and places like that, where you can just put it on the mug, but the software does everything automatically. It then targets the followers of that person. So amazing software, amazing business. And so that was the business. So guess what we did? We said, okay, this is going to still be a business. Let's take this software out. This becomes its own agency of a business that can now do that same thing for anybody.
That's interesting. I'm looking forward to seeing the legal ramifications of that.
Yeah.
Moving forward. Yeah, but that's it. Definitely an interesting example. So what's number 4? Actually, before we get to number 4, as a reminder to everyone, we're here with Ace Chapman. Ace is the manager of the Sleeping Beauty Fund, a $20 million family of funds focused on micro private equity, buying businesses under $5 million. He's also the CEO of Fiji, which is a publicly traded royalty company focused on internet-based businesses. You can find out more about Ace at acechapman.com. That is acechapman.com. And today we're talking about the 5 biggest opportunities for small business acquisitions during the coronavirus. So please make sure you like this video. Please make sure you share and also subscribe to the Black Financial channel. All right, Ace, let's talk about number 4.
Number 4 is something that most people have never considered. And so I want you to have an open mind even at this concept. Most people don't know that anybody essentially can be an investment bank and do a lot of the things that an investment bank does for their local community, their friends, the other entrepreneurs, and all of that. Now, it doesn't take having a bunch of money. It doesn't take being a particular huge expert. It does take knowing the deal that you're going to get involved with. So the reason that this is an opportunity right now is there are a ton of assets that are basically lying dormant and not being used. And there are a lot of business owners that also need capital and access to capital. And so what we do a lot of people think that private equity is just buying a business, but private equity is literally doing things in the private arena. So mutual funds, hedge funds, all these other funds, they invest in publicly traded assets. What we do that's different is we look at private businesses and we figure out how do we do things that will help them. If they do want to sell, how do we help them sell? If they do need access to capital, then how do we do that as well? And there are a lot of ways to do this, but one of the simple things, and I did a video with a brother down in Atlanta who used this strategy I call the Financier Strategy. And it's finding businesses that you know something about and using arbitrage to lend to them. So as we all know, most entrepreneurs do not have good credit. And unfortunately, there are some really great businesses that should make it through everything that we're going through right now. And the business is good enough to get funding, but the owner's credit isn't. And so a lot of those businesses are going to die if they don't come up with a way to access the needed capital to stay in business. So one of the things that we do is we basically use arbitrage. So if you are somebody that has good credit, you can get money at very low rates right now. And, it could be 3% or whatever. But there are businesses that would be happy to pay a lot higher rate. It could be 12%, 15%. And, the key here is understanding the business. And for me personally, I love having assets. It's just like, hey, I'll do this amount, but this is the asset I have. If you don't pay me, I'll get along 50% of what that asset is worth. And then I'll just take the asset. And even though I sell it for 50%, I'm going to get my money. And literally, one of the big reasons that I went into tanning was like financing those other salons and the beds themselves, because it was like, okay, I'll do 50%, and then I'll just come in here and take it and eBay it if I have to. So it's pretty low risk at the end of the day. You still have to manage risk. Now, it's interesting because even one of my clients that I trained to do this, he he's an expert at online webinars, and he started financing webinars essentially where he had an agency that could do the Facebook marketing. And it was basically like, hey, like, I know what you're going to make from this. I'm going to put up the money. Here's what I'm going to charge. I'm going to give you this loan. And it was cool to watch. And it's an interesting video. And we, kind of break down what he did there. But he didn't start with anything. He raised 25,000. And in that video, we talk about him building this side business that generates 50,000 a year in income profit, without a dime of his own money. And, we pull up the bank account and everything. I know a lot of people are just like, no, that's not possible. But, one of the things, one of the funniest things to me is, you can land in every city on the planet Earth, every major city, and you go to look at the largest building here in Colombia, Bank of Colombia. That building is just, it's like outrageous. Like, how many people do y'all have it? Like, why is this building that big?
But the second largest building is probably Sura for the insurance, right?
Yeah. So you look at the tallest, biggest buildings, and it's going to be these banks. And so there's a reason that that's the case, is that banking is very profitable. And kind of one of the interesting things that we do with those is, and again, I would just encourage going through and you can watch a lot of details on the video. I think this strategy gets the right people, like they really get excited about this. But one of the cool strategies is once you make that note, once you do that loan against that asset, what you now have is an asset. That note, once that other person signs and agrees to pay, this is a asset that people buy and sell and all of that. So you can go and actually borrow again against that and raise capital against that note at a low rate, because those people are protected by the original and they're getting some money from the other person. So you can borrow again against that note and have that original $25,000 end up turning into $150,000 through that kind of mechanism. It's a very cool strategy. There's a lot more when you talk about being an investment bank. I've done a lot of different deals. I've financed a van for a locksmith, a very cool locksmith, interesting company, and a guy who I ended up helping to buy a locksmith business. He runs it remotely. He's on an island in the Caribbean. He has a series of locksmith companies. And again, and I don't want to take up too much time on this, but one of the cool things with certain businesses is that, going back to the number one, offline opportunities, you can buy some offline businesses and run them like internet businesses. So most of these locksmiths are, basically they're run by mom and pop, essentially. It's like one guy in a truck, and he gets a call and he goes, he unlocks the car and he unlocks the door of the car, whatever. And then he goes on and gets paid. So what we realize is like, man, like these people are not good at SEO, and the SEO person wins. Like the person that's number one, because you're not looking for like him to come in style. And in fact, most of the time they definitely do not come in style. You want them to show up, you want them to unlock the car, whatever. So it's not like, it's like whoever shows up number one, that's who you're gonna click, call, get the locksmith in.
That's interesting. Sam Ovens, he runs the consulting.com, and in his training, he talks about that when he was working with plumbers and hot water heaters. So when when your hot water heater breaks, you're not looking for the best person to come replace your hot water. You're looking for like the person who could do it right now, immediately, right? So it seems like locksmiths is like that urgency factor, right? So whatever's needed in like an urgent type of way, those tend to be good markets to actually be in long term.
Exactly. So you hit the nail on the head. You want people that can come, that can show up really quickly. So, and if you're number one, you're getting a high percentage of majority of the business. And so what we realized was, great, let's buy the number one. Let's basically build a SEO moat around this thing. And then let's go and buy number 4, 5, and 6. We don't really need 2 and 3, but we're going to get 4, 5, and 6 so that we can not only take out the competitors, but now we can be the best response time. So we have access to 4 vans, and it's worked out really, really well. But what I did there was, he didn't have the money for the vans. I financed the vans, and that's been a really cool deal for me. And one of the notes on this is, in all of these, you're taking a little bit of equity as well. So you get the interest. We're talking about the $50,000 that Suresh is making without using any of his own money. In addition to that, you negotiate to get some equity long term. So you're building your long-term wealth, building your legacy, building something that you can pass down, and you're getting some cash today. So very neat strategy that is a big opportunity in the market we're in right now. That's number 4.
Okay, well, let's get number 5. Yeah, so I actually had to just push back my meeting 5 minutes because I really wanted us to finish this. Let's talk about number 5. So, let's talk about that though. So what's the 5th thing?
So the 5th thing is flipping these businesses. So you may be somebody that doesn't want to own the business, but you can still benefit from finding these deals and then connecting them with other people that want to buy those businesses. Now it's kind of being like a bird dog, and the big opportunity there. I have a friend that's doing this in Canada, where there are these entrepreneur groups, and there are the startup communities, and all of these folks that want to start a business. So he gathers these opportunities, and then he brings them to those groups, and basically says, hey, like, here's this business, take your ideas and bring those ideas to grow these business. And then he understands the deal making aspect of structuring the deal, getting both sides happy, getting both sides comfortable. He takes a little piece out of it in some cases, or gets paid by the person that's buying it for the intro, but it creates a nice little paycheck for him. The other one is consulting for equity, where you can go into some of these businesses, like in the flower case. Instead of, let's say they didn't necessarily want to sell, a big opportunity for anybody with one of these 60-year-old women who owns a flower business in your community, is just to go to that business and say, hey, there's a lot that we can be doing online. There's some unique things that we can do. We can, one of the concepts that I'll give you guys for free here is, on Facebook, you can target people based on their birthday. You should be targeting in that city everybody on that birthday, ahead of the birthday, to say, hey, like, we'll send out a flower for free. We just want your info. Or if you come by the store once that opens, and we've got your flower here for free, and that gets that traffic in there, gets them to know the business and the cost of flowers. Just not, you're basically giving them the flower that you're probably going to throw out anyway. So these kinds of things are really powerful. Last thing that's kind of in this world is joint venturing. Got a awesome brother who just retired, and shout out to Curtis, did a deal that was basically a triangulation. So he found a business that has some opportunities, and this is almost like the consulting for equity, minus the fact that, hey, he's not an internet expert. He's never done, he's an older dude, awesome, but he's an older cat, and it's like, man, I don't know any of this stuff. But he saw the opportunity, he knew, okay, this is an amazing opportunity if I can find the right person that can do the marketing. And he couldn't do it, so he got a certain deal with this person with a certain amount of equity. Like, if I can help you reach this milestone, what will you give me? Then he found the person who had experience and could do it, and negotiated with that person. It's like, oh, I'll give you this portion of what I'm getting if you hit this milestone. kind of snuck three
Got
in
you.
there
Yeah.
on that
Yeah. No. Yeah, that's
one.
great, man. Yeah. So as a reminder, everyone, today we've been talking with Ace Chapman. Ace is the manager of Sleeping Beauty Fund, a $20 million family of funds focused on micro private equity, buying business under the $5 million mark. He's also the CEO of Fiji, which is a publicly traded royalty company focused on internet-based businesses. Today, he's talked about five different things, really six. So he gave us a bonus. So the first one was go where the demand is. So he was talking about things like flowers and also firearms. The second is look into your SBA loans in terms of that being a unique opportunity when it comes to buying businesses, small businesses. The third is to look into the technology sector. Fourth is think about financing, and how can you, as a person, if you have extra cash or know how to go about raising cash, be a financier to a lot of these businesses that are probably going to survive the corona crash, the coronavirus, but the owners may not have great credit or something like that. So you can be that bridge to help them get from point A to point B financially. And the last piece is flipping, and think about how you can go about flipping businesses. And the bonus was JVing and working for equity, or cash or equity, that type of thing. Well, equity in this particular case. So you hit certain milestones as a consultant, or some type of partner, and you get get an equity stake in that business that you are working with as well. So those are the 5+1 things that you can do in terms of opportunities for small business acquisition during the coronavirus. Did I miss anything, guys?
That is it, man. Thanks so much for having me on.
Yeah, no worries. And how can people get in touch with you if they want to learn more about your product and services or be a part of the fund, that type of thing in the future?
Yeah, so definitely check out acechapman.com. On Instagram, it's at ace.chapman. And on YouTube, you can search Ace Chapman. And there's a lot of information that goes into more details about some of the things that we chatted about today.
Perfect. And sorry I couldn't get to your customer questions or your audience questions today. I'm actually running behind for a meeting that I need to get to. So I'm going to go ahead and head off to that. But please make sure that before you get out of here, make sure you like this video, share, and also subscribe to the Black Financial channel for more financial content like what we produce today here with Ace Chapman. So on behalf of Ace, my name is Lawrence Watkins. You guys take care. Be blessed and have a wonderful day. All right. Bye-bye.